It's 8 o'clock, so we can start. Everybody has got the text? Page 265.
Yes, Ranganath.
CWS.
Yes, Ranganath.
Yeah. And we can start. What is being discussed is that once you have attained the self and the ego has gone away and you have got a consciousness now, is there any work to continue in the physical world? Karma Yoga is a question. So, do you have to do any work? And if you don't have to do any work, what will be your attitude? And if you have to do any work, how is it to be done? In what spirit? This is a discussion taking place. Okay? And he has already told us that many ideas. One idea in India is after you have reached the self, there is nothing to be done. You have reached the end of the journey and you are absolutely calm and quiet and you merge into the Supreme in any way you want. There are many, many choices. One choice is you disappear into the infinite, nirvana. The other is you live in one of the heavenly worlds. Okay? Ananda Loka, Brahma Loka, Vijnana Loka, there are so many lokas. And whatever you want, you can live there permanently. Okay? But in Sringa Yoga, work is there to be continued because that is based on the Gita. Okay? So, I am continuing now. So, I'm reading 3-4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines before there is a question, before that. Okay? All existence in the world is work, force, potency, and has a dynamic effect in the whole by its mere presence. Even the inertia of the cloud, even the silence of the immobile Buddha on the verge of nirvana. In other words, you cannot avoid work in the physical world. The physical world, if you remember, is constant motion, constant action, unceasing action. So how can you say I won't act? You have to act. And even if you sit still, there is the action is going on. Even the cloud, as we are saying, the cloud is subject to the weather, so it is being changed, so it is changing. And even the Buddha, Nirvana, he is growing old in the physical world, or he is changing. Every day you are eating food and throwing out material into the universe, that also is action. So it's impossible to avoid action in the physical world. So, now the question is, what is action to be done? I'm reading the sentence from where we left off last time. There is a question only of the manner of the action, the instruments that are used, or that act of themselves, and the spirit and knowledge of the worker. In what attitude will you should do the work? And what is the work to be done? What is its nature? For in reality, no man works, but nature works through him for the self-expression of a power within that proceeds from the infinite. The divine is doing everything, not directly, but through nature. And for us, so far as we are concerned, nature is making us act. We feel that we are acting because we have an ego. But the moment you go to the self, you realize that you are not acting at all. You are only a puppet. And nature is using you for her own purpose. The realization of non-doership is a very big experience in yoga. You realize that you are not a doer. Ego then disappears. Ego also disappears. Okay? Nature works through him for the self-expression of power within that proceeds from the infinite. To know that and live in the presence and in the being of the master of nature, free from desire and the illusion of personal impulsion, is the one thing needful. That's what we do. That and not the bodily cessation of action is the true release. The real liberation is some activity going on in Sunki's place. Okay, so is the one thing need. That and not the bodily cessation of action is a true release, for the bondage of works at once ceases. You are not bound to your works at all. In the physical world, when your soul is identified with body, mind, life, you incur the law of karma, which is applicable to the body, mind, life. But you have to undergo the suffering and the pleasure and whatever it is, your consequences of that, you have to undergo. But when you are not identified with the body, mind, life, naturally you are free. And that's why it's called liberation. You are completely free. The soul is free. The body, mind, life continues with its subjection to law of karma. Okay? That and not the bodily cessation of action is a true release. For the bondage of works at once ceases. A man might sit still and motionless forever and yet be as much bound to the ignorance as the animal or the insect. But if he can make this greater consciousness dynamic within him, then all the work of the worlds would pass through him and yet he would remain at rest. So he can continue to do, but the consciousness is not affected at all. That's what it means. Okay? So once again, this is the, okay, there is no comment. So action in the world is given us first as a means of our self-development and self-fulfillment. We have to do action, because when you do action only, you will get experience. And experience will give you knowledge, and knowledge will liberate you. Okay? So that is the reason why you have to act in the physical world. But even if we reach at last possible divine self-completeness, it will still remain as a means for the fulfillment of the divine intention in the world and of the larger universal self, of which each being is a portion. Okay? Amsha Sanatana, a portion that has come down from it, from the transcendence. So this will look at what he's saying. But even if we reach the last possible divine completeness, what is this? He's saying that even if we reach the last possible divine self-completeness, the individual, but the individual has reached his goal, but why doesn't he now transfer all his capacities and work in the physical world? That's what he's saying. Okay? So, individual liberation is achieved, but he has to now aid, he has to help the evolution in the physical world to go to the next level of evolution, bringing the supramental consciousness into the physical world. That's what he's saying. And because each one, all of you, are a being of the portion, a being in a portion. This is the reference to the Gita, Amsha Sanatana. Okay. All right? That completes the paragraph. So, in fact, I'll do quickly one thing before we read the next paragraph. We'll read the summary of what he's saying. Okay, so one answer common in India is that no works need to be done for after liberation. The soul has multiple choices, and one of them is not to return to earth by rebirth. When the soul, liberated, lives permanently in the presence of the divine, the bhakti path, or is merged in the absolute, the jnana path, the purpose of incarnation in a body, life, mind is achieved. And that is the end of the spiritual journey of the individual jiva. This is the normal understanding in India. Works are indispensable in the ignorance to exhaust your karma. And after deliverance from ignorance, there is automatically liberation from works also. That's a normal idea. The view which the integral yoga does not confer with, okay, this view which the integral yoga does not agree with, is based on the vital nature of error that action is caused by three things. Okay. Why do people say that in India? Because, first of all, there are three reasons for action. First reason, necessity. Second reason, instinct. Third reason, impulse. Okay. Necessity, you have to eat and drink and perform the actions of nature. So necessity. Secondly, instinct. At the animal level, the animal is not thinking of anything. It is just instinct. It eats and reproduces itself and sleeps. That is instinct. And impulse. Now that comes in desire. So desire is a great thing. But if desire is not there, what is there to work? That's the whole idea. The idea is not correct, but that is general idea. I think that idea is slowly going away even in India now. But there are some who still say that. There is a gentleman who came from Ramakrishna Mission and he has read Suranda very well. Okay? And yet he said in Hall of Harmony, he said the aim of my life personally is liberation. Okay? So that idea is still very much there in India. Okay? Although it may be disappearing a little bit, and more as those views get spread all over the world, the idea will remain that yes, you have to do work in the physical world beyond your liberation. Even after liberation, you have to do work. So, when the soul rises above all these three things, obviously action is no more needed. That's a normal idea. Mechanical and unconscious action may continue, but this too vanishes with the death of the body. Okay? All these no Srim's view. This is the normal idea in India. But a good look shows that when life is active, action is unavoidable. Even thinking, willing is action. Existence in the world is itself an action. Everything in this transient world is in movement and therefore in action. So, what remains to be considered is the manner of action, how we have to act, what is the instrument of action. At our level here, the instrument of action is you use your body, mind, life, but the motivation is ego and desire. And then what should be the attitude, the spirit in the action? These three things are to be considered. Then Srimad continues, actually, all action is executed by universal nature alone, through the individual. Man does nothing at all. Okay? That's the truth. True non-action, quiescence, is freedom from desire and illusion of personal sense of devotion. That is the real non-action. Okay? Non-action is freedom from desire and illusion of personal sense of devotion. Physical non-action is not true quiescence. But if man can make the higher consciousness active in his nature without desire, attachment and ego, then that is a true non-action. This is described in the Gita as the ocean. The yogi who is absolutely without desire is like a huge ocean, calm and still. And when the rivers come into it, it remains absolutely unperturbed. The river may come in, but it's not changing the ocean at all. So what is the river? Impulsions, the impulses that come from the physical world, desires, okay, your contact with others, all these things leave you absolutely calm and free and unaffected. So that is a real liberation. That's what I'm saying. Action in the world is meant for self-development through experience. So, stationed in the witness self, doing all the works in the world, he is not the doer. Okay? Even after self-fulfillment is complete, action can still be used for divine work, which is spiritual evolution in the world. That's what the para says. So we finished era. Now we can go to the next one in a certain sense. Tuesday is Pallavi's day and she is there. So, Pallavi, if you have the text, you can read in a certain sense.
Yes, Ranganath.
Go ahead.
In a certain sense, When his yoga has reached a certain culmination, works cease for a man, for he has no further personal necessity of works, no sense of works being done by him. But there is no need to flee from action or to take refuge in a blissful inertia. For now he acts as the divine existence, acts without any binding necessity and without any compelling ignorance. Even in doing works, he does not work at all. He undertakes no personal initiative. It is the divine Shakti that works in him through his nature. His action develops through the spontaneity of a supreme force by which his instruments are possessed, of which he is a part. With those his will is identical, and his power is her power. The spirit within him contains, supports, and watches this action. It presides over it in knowledge, but is not glued or clamped to the work by attachment or need, is not bound by desire of its fruit, is not enslaved to any movement or impulse.
So yes, you are making a slight departure. So he is explaining that. In a certain sense, when his yoga has reached a certain culmination, work ceases for a man. So Sridhar is agreeing that there is no necessity of work. Okay. But that's not compulsory. That's what he's saying. There's quite a subtle difference between the two. The one is Indian yoga is saying no need to do any work. Sridhar doesn't agree with that. He says, yes, if you want, you need not do any work. That is true. But it is not compulsory that you should not do any work. Okay? That's what is being pointed out. You have a choice. You can work if you want. Because you are free. You are free from the law of karma. Okay? Causality doesn't apply to you anymore. In a certain sense, when a yoga has reached a certain culmination. Now, what is meant by reach a certain culmination? We know that when you reach the self, you are the non-doer. So a certain culmination starts even at the higher mind level of the self. The moment you have realized yourself, you don't need to do any more work.
Rangada,
Yeah, tell me.
if we reach that stage with
Yeah,
the self, then
yeah.
how do we have the choice? Because there is no choice. I mean, in that sense, because there is no ego.
But ego is not the only one that determines action. Huh? You have a soul, and the soul has a choice. In fact, there is the soul selects what it wants to do. If you are a Buddhistic soul, you want to disappear into the infinite. And if you are any other yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, then you have the choice to remain permanently in the physical world. You have a choice. The choice is there. All these rishis and all these uh, people who are there, okay, our scriptures, Ramayana and Mahabharata, are full of references to rishis who live in the spiritual worlds. There's a choice. Ego is not the only initiator of action. No?
Okay.
Yeah.
Rangada, one more question.
Yes.
Once you reach that stage,
Yes.
the law of karma still applies when we are working.
Pardon, I didn't follow.
The law of karma still applies.
Applies to the body, mind, life, but not to the soul. And you are separated from the soul. So you are using
once we reach that stage,
uh-huh.
still we are bound by the fruits of actions.
No, you are not. You are free. Who is the you? The you is, there is a body, mind, life. That's not the you. The you is a soul. And the soul is free. But you are asking a question which I have already explained once earlier. Look at the case of Sri Aurobindo, look at the case of the avatars, look at the Ramakrishna, look at Raman Maharshi. What happened to them? They are absolutely free. But what happened to the body, mind, life? Okay? There was cancer. Okay? In both cases, there was cancer. Okay? So the body, mind, life continues to undergo the law of causality, the law of karma. And
then what is the difference? Then what is the difference between this and that?
oh, the soul is free. My God. You are not soul now. Your soul is identified with your body, mind, life. You are not even aware of your soul.
Yeah.
So you are suffering. The soul also is suffering
Mhm.
because it is identified with the body, mind, life. Okay. But
Yeah. Yeah.
this law will not apply to the supramental being because even the matter at that time will be at a height. It will not be the grossest matter. And let me explain this a little more why it is that the law of causality acts at the material level. Okay? Remember that there is a gradation of substance. Okay? Then you will understand immediately. At the highest level, there is no gross substance. There is no gross substance. It is free. And to understand this, it is very easy to think of the Earth atmosphere. Okay? When you are on the Earth, okay, there is the grossness of the air and there is a gravitational pull which is pulling you down. And that means you have no choice. There is a fixity. And also the law of tamas also makes sure that there is fixity in the physical world. Now, what is fixity? Lack of freedom. Okay? Think about it very carefully. You'll see that there is lack of freedom. So the more gross a matter, the more law of karma applies. The rigidity of laws becomes even more. Now, as you rise in height, okay, you go 100 miles above the earth, the law of gravitation doesn't apply anymore. Okay, you sit down. So there is freedom there. Okay? So freedom starts for the soul from the self. It starts. You are not bound to the body mind life at all. The gravitational pull applies to the body mind life, and the law of karma also applies at that level only. At the higher levels, it doesn't apply. And even if it applies less rigidly. The image of the atmosphere and the gravitational pull at the lower level and the freedom from gravitation at the higher level explains the density and the law of karma. The fixity is directly proportional to the lack of freedom. Freedom,
Rangada,
yes, tell me. Yes,
Rangada, here I wanted to ask one thing. See,
yes,
the body, mind, life is
yes,
always be in the law of karma,
yes,
right? Cause
yes.
it's
I
when
think
we are involved in that
ah,
and we
that's
are
right.
not identified with soul, when we are not
Yes,
identified with the soul, then
yes,
that process of karma affects us.
yes.
Okay.
Ah,
Now, what my question is
yes.
that even then the soul is free, but because I am not identified with the soul,
That's right.
that is why I feel the effects of karma.
That's right.
Soul itself is not involved, is never involved in the karma. My identification with the body, mind, life makes me feel the effects of karma. Once I identify myself with, this is a question, Rangada. I'm putting it, you say whether I'm saying it right or not. But when I'm identified with my soul or I'm aware of my soul, I start living in my soul, then the law of karma does not affect me anymore. So my
See,
question is, can we say that the soul is actually not involved in the karma either way? It is because we are not identified with the soul, we are involved in the karma. This is my question. Could I
no,
explain it clearly?
see, actually, when
Yes, sir.
you are saying I am not identified, who is the I? Is it the consciousness of the
I
mind?
mean,
Is
I'm
it,
aware
is it
mind, Rangada. I'm also knowing my through the mind. Till I'm not identified, I think with the mind. I
no?
feel with the mind.
But your soul is divine
Hmm.
only in essence. But the soul is in ignorance. When it is down here, and it is soul that is identified with the body mind life. Not you are saying I am not identified, soul is
Okay,
free.
okay,
That's not
Rangada.
exactly
Okay, now I
that's
understood. That was exactly that was okay, Rangada. Now I understood.
is a consciousness of the soul that is identified with the body, right? When it loses that, then it becomes more and more divine. Okay?
Ranganath, here soul and psychic being is the same.
Yeah, you can say that. But as I said, soul is also the self. Okay? But the self, psychic being is individual, and the soul is or the self is universal. But yet it's individual also. The self is individual as well as universal. Whereas the psychic being is only individual. Okay? Now, I thought Archana was going to ask something even more interesting. Okay? I thought she is going to ask, how do you say that the supramental body will not undergo the law of karma? After all, it's a body, and the body belongs to the lower hemisphere. I thought that's what she's going to ask. Okay? Now, it's an
You can
interesting.
answer that.
Pardon?
You can answer that. Maybe we can, that time, our body consciousness will also become one with the consciousness of the divine. The
Yeah. What I'm saying, this substance in the body, normal body, is gross. Okay? But the substance in a person who is at a higher level of consciousness is not gross. And the matter, when it becomes supramental matter, is not gross. It escapes the law of karma. That is the reason why there is no death with the supramental body. There is no illness with the supramental body. The law of karma will not apply to the supramental body. Although it's a body, it will be matter. But the subtle matter. It won't be fixed like ours. It will be a matter which can change form. It's a matter which will be free. Okay? It can do whatever it wants with itself. It can remain in several places at the same time. It can dissolve itself. It can make itself. So, because that matter itself has gone to a higher level. That's the thing.
Then now how we visualize a ghost, it will be something like that.
How we visualize the what?
A ghost.
Oh, yeah, something. Exactly. Okay. But the ghost is a vital substance, whereas the supramental body will be a supramental substance. It will be a spiritual substance. Exactly. It's more accurate to say, not ghost, but say ice, water vapor. It will be like water vapor, fluid, free, not bound. The form can change. Okay? That will be more accurate. Ghost is, the idea is correct, but the ghost is vital matter. It's energy. Okay? That is the reason why it can even be measured. The presence of a ghost can be measured by a Geiger counter. A Geiger counter. Pardon?
But the vapor can't change its shape according to his will, whether the ghost can. That's why I thought of ghost.
There is a little flexibility, that's true, but it's still vital matter. What you're saying is true, because even the vital beings in the vital world, okay, elves and gnomes, their forms need not be fixed. They can change their form. That changing of form starts only, it is rigid only at the physical level. But the changing of form starts becoming more and more fluid from the vital world onwards. But the change of form becomes even more potent in the mental world. And finally, the higher worlds is even more potent. That is the reason why even the asuras who live in the vital worlds, they can change their form. Yeah. And not to speak of Apsaras and Gandharvas and Kinnaras, the attendants of Kubera, the attendants of Yama, all these beings are there. They don't evolve, of course, but they are free. They may not have a divine consciousness, but they are not bound to the laws of the physical world. Okay. The other day, Sima was asking me about the beings that live in the higher worlds. So that's why I remembered freshly. And these beings, okay, the gods and all that, they are semi-divine, but they don't have a psychic being. There's no need for a psychic being because the psychic being is there in man so that he gets guidance from the divine and for evolution. But these beings, elves and gnomes and mental Gandharvas, Kinnavas, they don't evolve. They are what are called typal beings. They are fixed in that plane of consciousness where they are. All the gods, for instance, don't evolve. And if they want to evolve, they have to come down into the physical world. Because in the higher worlds, there is no movement. And without movement, you cannot evolve. Okay? So it's a very interesting thing. We have to see it in that way. Okay? So we have 10 minutes. Shall we go to the next para? In a certain sense. Oh, we read that, no? Yeah, we read it. We have to discuss it.
No, we didn't read, Ramadan.
Pardon?
We didn't read, no?
We read it. So
We
we'll discuss it. Okay. In a certain sense, when his yoga has reached a certain culmination, yes, we read it. But a certain culmination, I said, it can work from the self onwards. Work cease for a man. For he has no further personal necessity of works, no sense of works being done by him. But there is no need to flee from action or to take refuge in a blissful inertia. That's what we discussed already, this one, that although it is true that you don't need to work, but you can work if you want to. You can decide. And then Tarika asked the question that where's the question of decision? There is soul as a decision. Not the body mind life, but the soul as a decision. Ego is not there. I read the next sentence. For now, he acts as a divine existence action. For now, he, the one who is liberated, acts as a divine existence action without any binding necessity and without any compelling ignorance. Even in doing works, he does not work. Note the word he is in italics. That means to say, he who is not identified with the ego. Okay? So that's what it means. In doing work, he does not work at all. The ego is not. This the universal nature is doing the work. He undertakes no personal initiative. Personal initiative is not there. Okay, that personal initiative is very interesting. You have the Gita very, very clear. Sarvarambha. Okay. Whenever you are thinking of doing some action, there is a decision in the mind first. I have to do this. And then you do it. Okay. So that itself, the conception of doing something in the mind itself disappears. The one who is free. He has no need to do any work at all. So there is no need of any desire being born in the mind or even an intention being born in the mind. Nothing at all. It is the divine Shakti that works in him through his nature. His action develops through the spontaneity of a supreme force by which his instruments are possessed, of which he is a part, with whose will his will is identical, and his power is her power, the power of the divine Shakti. Okay. The spirit within him contains, supports, and watches his action. Only watches. Okay. The action is being done. The divine is now working through you. You are the channel. You are still not working. The divine is working, but since you have no desire and no intention and no motive, the divine intention can come through without harm, without limitation, without distortion through you into the body mind life. Okay? You become in the beginning, your body mind life is an instrument of the nature in the beginning, like us. But when you are realized soul and you have no more desires, you can become an instrument and a puppet of the divine. And that's the happiest situation that you can be in. That's what he's saying. And that's it. The spirit within him contains, supports, and watches the action. It presides over it in knowledge, but is not glued or clamped to the work by attachment or need. It is not bound by desire of its fruit. It is not enslaved to any movement or impulse. So, very clear what he is saying. Right? So, if there are any questions, we can have. Okay, we have got 5 minutes. Let me see if the next para is big or quite small.
Dada,
Yes, tell me.
these experiences, what now got explained in this paragraph, these experiences are exactly similar at the state of realizing the psychic being, connecting with the psychic being and with the self. These experiences will be similar, Dada. Now, at this state of psychic being, something will be different.
No, you are quoting something from the para. Where are you quoting?
No,
Yes.
this last line, the spirit within him contains, supports and watches this action. It presides over it in knowledge, but is not glued or clamped to the work by attachment or need. This is the realization of self, I think, Dada. Isn't it?
Yes, yes. Yes.
So at the when we'll be connected, the sadhak will be connected with his psychic being. What like the experiences will be like this, exactly like this, or something else?
No, I've understood your question. No, when you are satisfied, when you are identified with the psychic, knowledge does not necessarily come. Okay, now, psychic only purifies you. I've understood your question. Psychic being does not give you knowledge necessarily. It only purifies you. Okay, the knowledge you have to go up. It is not horizontal. It is vertical. The freedom from it does not. The freedom comes only when you go up. Again, take the thing of the Earth atmosphere. However much horizontal, the experience of the psychic is horizontal. You are still on the physical Earth. But if you want to go up, then you lose your gravitational force. Then you are free. So knowledge and freedom comes only in the self, not the psychic being. But there is one thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But the psychic being.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you, Dada.
Yeah, it's okay. But the psychic being, when it is there, your fully identified psychic being, it is very easy to go to the self. And the psychic can merge into the self. They are two different things, but the psychic can merge into the self. When you are fully identified with the psychic, then it's very easy to go to the self. But even the experience of the psychic, there are gradations. Okay? You may only feel its influence, but even that is very, very powerful. Or you may identify yourself fully with the psychic. You may even know it intimately. There also there are gradations. Okay? But when you are completely identified with the psychic, then it's easy to rise to the self. You may not want to. That's another matter. Okay? Someone who is enjoying the bliss of the divine and the love of the divine, he may not be interested in knowledge. It depends on the individual. Okay? The one, in fact, Sridhar mentioned that. It is so wonderful, the experience of Ananda with the divine with you all the time. Okay? And you are having even a conversation with him and you are in intimate touch with him. They don't need any knowledge. What is knowledge? I don't want any knowledge. I am more than satisfied with my Ananda and relation with the divine. The sweetness and the intimacy. That can happen. But if the psychic being wants, it can certainly merge with the self. Okay?
When one is open to one's psychic being,
Yes.
is the ego still present?
Oh, yes.
One.
Very much.
And would equality be there or not?
Not much. But it helps. The equality can come only at the self. When you are identified with your body, mind, life, then the equality cannot be there. But you remember in the Gita, yes, tell me.
And the ego goes away only when you go vertically up from the higher mind upwards.
That's right. That's right. And even there, a little bit of a lingering ego is there, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beginning of little demolition of the ego, which increases, till there is absolute abolition of the ego.
Yes, you're right. But what I'm saying, equality, if you remember, we read in the essay on the Gita, there is a tamasic equality, there's a rajasic equality, and there's a sattvic equality. But the true equality is only at the higher spiritual level in the self. So equality starts even at the lower level. Okay. First of all, it is negative, like tamasic equality. As I said, somebody is so insensitive, then even if you give him a slap, he doesn't react. Okay. He doesn't even know what has happened. Okay. So that is the equality in a negative sense. But you, in the vital, it is fighting. It fights nature and it wants to conquer. So that is vital equality, rajasic equality. Then there is sattvic equality, which is the poet, uh, the philosopher, the sage. They have the sattvic equality. But that's not the real equality. The real equality is only in the self. Okay? So, interesting discussions we had, and it should help to clarify many, many ideas.
For supramentalization, both psychicization, both the experiences are necessary.
Can't hear you clearly, Archana.
I'll ask you tomorrow. I'm in the dispensary net problem.
Yes, yes. The Archana Di, right in the beginning, Sri Aurobindo has said that you need two hooks, grapple hooks. The psychic being one, and the other thing is the silent mind.
Yeah,
It's
self.
only after you get that your yoga begins. It doesn't begin before the two grapple hooks are
Yes, yes. That's good. Okay. So, I'm cutting the link. I have another class now. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Okay. Thank you, Dada. Bye.
You all.